The last time I saw my mother, her hands were cold, but her grip was still strong. She had whispered, "Don't let him take what I built for you." I had nodded through tears, clutching her fingers like they were the last roots holding me to something real. I thought I understood what she meant, but I didn't. Not until 2 weeks later, in that wood-paneled law office, when everything she warned me about unfolded like a rehearsed scene. It was raining that day. One of those cold, spitting rains that soaks you without drama. The kind of day that feels like it's apologizing for existing. I sat at the long mahogany table beside my stepfather, Greg, who smelled like too much cologne and old leather. He had on the same suit he wore to the funeral, just with a fresher tie. His eyes were dry. He didn't look at me once. The attorney cleared his throat and said, "This will is dated 3 weeks prior to your mother's passing. Signed and witnessed." I blinked. No, that's not possible. Mom had a will. She showed it to me. We sat at the kitchen table while she folded it into the blue envelope with my name on it. She told me, "It's not much, but I want you to feel safe. This house is yours. The accounts, they're all in your name after I go." She even laughed and said, "Greg will be fine. He always lands on his feet." But this was not the same will. This one gave everything to Greg, the house, the savings, the equity stake in the security firm she helped him build from scratch. Even her jewelry, my grandmother's necklace, her wedding ring, it was all entrusted to Mr. Gregory Whitman for discretionary distribution, as if he'd ever. I looked up slowly, feeling the ground disappear from under me. Greg leaned back in his chair like a man hearing exactly what he expected. No surprise, no confusion, no hesitation. And then he smiled. Just a flicker, like a crack through a mask. That was when I knew. He'd done it. Somehow. Swap the will. Pressured her. Forged something. I didn't know how. Not yet. But I knew it in my bones. I knew it like I knew my name. The attorney closed the folder and said, "I'm truly sorry for your loss." But Greg's hand was already reaching for the house keys. That night, I stayed in my childhood bedroom, for the last time. The shelves still held my old books, the window still squeaked, and the walls still smelled like lavender from Mom's diffuser. But it felt like a stranger's room now, like someone had hollowed it out and left just the shape behind. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just lay there, wide awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling like the world had tilted and no one noticed but me. Mom had trusted him. She had believed he would take care of me if anything happened. But she underestimated how easily some people trade love for power. How greed isn't always loud. Sometimes it's polite, soft-spoken, and wearing your dead mother's husband's face. The next morning, I packed my bags before the sun came up. I left the keys on the counter. No note. No goodbye. And as I shut the front door, I whispered, "Take it. Take all of it." Because I wasn't going to fight him in court. I was going to erase him. Quietly, from everything he thought he owned. I left with 2 suitcases, a folder of old paperwork, and the velvet pouch that Greg must have forgotten. He probably thought it was empty. It wasn't. Inside were copies, my mother's original will, notarized and witnessed by her best friend Clara, and the stock certificates she had kept from her early investment in Greg's company. The originals, gone, likely destroyed. But the copies were real, with dates, signatures, and more importantly, context. Proof that Mom hadn't intended for Greg to inherit everything. Still, I didn't take it to court. Not yet. Because I knew men like Greg. They didn't break when you pushed. They broke when you pulled the floor out from beneath them. And I wasn't ready yet. I moved into a studio apartment with yellowing walls and a radiator that hissed louder than it heated. It was small, but it was mine. Every square inch of it. I took a job at a local bookstore. Nothing fancy. The pay barely covered rent, but it gave me peace and quiet, and shelves lined with the voices of people who had survived worse than this. At night, I worked. Not just side gigs, I studied. I buried myself in business law, finance, and real estate. I audited online courses, watched lectures, took notes until my eyes burned. Greg had stolen a future he didn't even understand. But I was going to build one he couldn't touch. It was Clara, Mom's best friend, who reached out first. She found me through an old contact form on my freelance editing page. Said she'd been looking for me. Said she didn't trust Greg. I knew something was wrong when he wouldn't let me see her at the end, Clara said over the phone, her voice brittle. And when the new will showed up, well, your mother wouldn't have changed it. Not in that state. Not for him. I asked her for everything she had. Emails, letters, texts from the hospital. She didn't hesitate. Within a week, I had a growing folder of receipts, literal and figurative, medical records, financial transfers, notarized documents showing that Mom's legal power of attorney had shifted just days before she lost the ability to speak. Greg had moved fast, too fast, like a man who had been planning it. A year passed, then 2. I moved into a bigger apartment. Then I stopped renting altogether. I bought a condo, quietly, under a name he wouldn't recognize. Then I registered an LLC, a silent investment firm. Then another, and another. Greg wasn't paying attention, too busy turning my mother's name into a legacy brand. He opened 2 new branches of his security company. He got a feature in Forbes. He posted photos with executives and smiled like he hadn't gutted a family to get there. But the numbers told a different story. His company was growing, yes, but not profitably. Expansion funded by credit, not cash flow. He was over-leveraged, under-diversified, and bleeding out slowly, which made him vulnerable, especially to someone buying shares quietly. An investor he never met, someone he didn't realize was me. By year 3, I owned 18% of Whitman and Wolf, through 3 different shell companies. And Greg, he still hadn't called me once, not to check in, not to apologize, not even when he sold the last thing that still had my mother's name on it, her charity trust, to fund another doomed expansion. He thought I was gone. He thought he'd erased me. But what Greg didn't know, what he never understood, was that the things my mother gave me didn't live in bank accounts or jewelry boxes. They lived in me, her mind, her grit, her fire. And it was almost time to show him what I'd become. I didn't come back through the side. I came through the front entrance of Whitman and Wolf HQ, wearing a slate gray suit and heels that clicked across the marble tile like a ticking clock. No one recognized me. The receptionist gave me the practiced smile reserved for important people. "Can I help you?" "Yes," I said, sliding a crisp card across the counter. "I have a meeting with Mr. Whitman. Tell him Brielle Langston is here. He'll want to make time." Her eyes flicked from the card to my face, confusion blooming just beneath the surface. But she nodded and picked up the phone. She didn't know. They'd all forgotten me. The office was bigger now. Glass walls, abstract art, security cameras, in every corner. The kind of sleek that says power more than it says success. The kind Greg always craved. Style over substance, recognition over reality. I waited exactly 3 minutes before the door opened. Greg stood in the threshold like a man staring at a ghost. "Brielle?" I smiled. Slow, polite, razor thin. "Hi, Greg. I thought we should talk." He didn't invite me in. He just stepped aside, and I walked past him like I belonged there, like I hadn't spent the last 3 years collecting every piece of leverage I could find. He still wore the same kind of too-sharp suit, his tie just a little crooked. His office smelled like money and synthetic wood polish. A display of awards lined the wall, none of them mentioning my mother's name anymore. "You look different," he said, voice cautious. "I am different," I replied. "You wouldn't believe how much someone can grow when they're cut off." He laughed, thin, defensive. "I wasn't the enemy, Brielle. Your mother—" "Don't," I interrupted, locking eyes with him. "Don't rewrite her story for me." He blinked, and for a moment, I saw it. The flicker of recognition. That I was no longer the quiet girl who'd vanished from the funeral, with nothing but a suitcase. That I wasn't here for sentiment. I was here for something else. He sat behind his desk, tried to reclaim control. "So why are you here?" "Simple," I said, pulling out a folder. "Your quarterly board meeting is next Friday. I'll be joining, as a major stakeholder." He stared. "Excuse me?" "Whitman and Wolf is privately held, yes, but fragmented. Multiple investors. Over 30% is now owned externally. And through a variety of acquisitions, I now control just under 21%. "That's impossible," he snapped, suddenly red-faced. I monitor these things." "You monitored names," I said, smiling faintly. "Not structures. I came in through the back doors, shellcore, mergers, minority purchase rights. I learned from the best." He stood, jaw tight, hands flat on the desk. "This company is mine. Your mother—" "This company was half hers," I said, cool and unblinking. "And if you think this is about revenge, Greg, it's not." He looked relieved for a half-second before I finished. "It's about removal. I left before he could say anything else. I didn't need to hear the threats. I didn't care about his panic. What mattered was already in motion, because in 6 days, I'd walk into that boardroom not as his stepdaughter, but as the person he should have never underestimated. Friday came with glass skies and the sharp buzz of nerves I hadn't felt in years. Not fear. Not hesitation. Focus. I wore black. Not the black of mourning, like the day I buried my mother, but the kind of black that means this is war. Hair pinned, heels sharp, documents crisp in my leather folio. As I walked into the 14th floor, conference room of Whitman and Wolf, I could feel Greg's pulse from across the table. He was trying to look composed, flanked by his board, but the tension in his jaw gave him away. The CEO mask was cracking. The seats around the long glass table were filled. Investors, advisors, legal counsel. All men, except for a woman named Lena from New York, who gave me a small nod as I sat down. "Ms. Langston," she said. "Pleasure to finally meet you." "Likewise," I replied smoothly, placing my binder down. "It's time we talked about company direction." Greg cleared his throat and forced a smile that barely reached his cheeks. "Before we get started," I held up a hand, and the room quieted. "I've circulated the agenda already," I said. "It includes financial anomalies from the Q3 report, conflicts of interest tied to company funds, and a motion to evaluate new executive leadership." Greg's face froze. Lena blinked. "You're recommending leadership change?" "I'm proposing it as a stakeholder with 21.4% equity." I met Greg's stare. "Unless someone would like to dispute that percentage?" He opened his mouth, closed it. Everyone in this room could smell it. He didn't see this coming. "I've reviewed recent expenditures," I continued, sliding a page across the table. "Large personal bonuses issued during quarters of declining performance. A property acquisition, in Napa listed under a shell company linked to Greg's family trust. Travel expenses billed as security expansions but registered to his son's name." I paused, letting that sink in. Silence. "You're reaching," Greg finally said, voice low and sharp. "You don't know how business works. You're just some bitter girl with a grudge and a little money." "No," I said, voice steady. "I'm a woman with a plan, a legal team, and documentation. And this," I tapped the binder, "isn't emotional. It's corporate. It's accountability." Lena shifted forward. "I've seen the filings. If even half of this is true, we need an emergency audit." A few heads nodded. Greg's voice rose. "This is a hostile takeover." "Hostile?" I tilted my head. "No. Hostile would have been court. Would have been publishing the forged will. Would have been going after you personally." I leaned forward, calm and razor-edged. "This is surgical." The vote didn't happen that day. It didn't need to. What I needed was doubt, and I planted it like a mine beneath Greg's feet. He stood in that boardroom pretending to be in control, but everyone saw it now. The irregularities, the favoritism, the ghost spending, the fear. And for the first time in years, I walked out of that building without a single tremble in my spine. Greg didn't follow. He knew. This wasn't about if I'd win. It was about when. Greg always thought power came from fear. He never understood. It came from proof. 3 days after the boardroom, he sent a thinly veiled email through legal, an invitation to discuss my inflammatory tone and future cooperation. I ignored it. Instead, I submitted my audit package to the board officially, a sleek annotated report with cross-reference documents showing asset mismanagement, bloated salaries to relatives, and a series of dubious consulting fees paid out to shell companies. It wasn't just questionable, it was blatant. He'd gotten careless over the years, maybe thinking no one would ever dare look under the surface. Why would they? He was the visionary founder, the man on Forbes panels and charity galas, but a mask once cracked only shatters further. That week, I got a call from Lena. "We're triggering the investigation," she said. "You should prepare." "I already am," I told her. What I didn't say was, "This isn't the end game. It's the reveal. I had something no audit could expose." Clara met me in a quiet cafe 2 hours outside the city. She came with trembling hands and a red folder. "He didn't just forge the new will," she said, eyes glistening. He isolated your mother in hospice, blocked visitors, told the nurses she was no longer lucid, but she was. She was. Her voice cracked. She kept asking for you. Inside the folder were her notes, dates, conversations. A printed email, where Greg asked a notary to come to the hospice late at night, after visiting hours. I saved the text messages, Clara said. I didn't know what to do then. I didn't think it would matter. It does, I whispered, my throat thick. She placed her hand over mine. She wanted you to fight, but she also wanted you to heal. I didn't send the folder to the board. Not yet. This was personal. And while the business side was already unraveling, I wanted Greg to feel the slow, suffocating panic of someone losing their grip, one finger at a time. By the end of the month, the board had frozen Greg's executive powers pending review. His travel budget was suspended. His name was removed from key accounts. His assistant was reassigned. He still had his title, for now, but he was a figurehead in a company that no longer listened to his voice. And then, on a rainy Wednesday afternoon, I requested a private meeting. Greg answered the knock with bloodshot eyes and a whiskey glass in hand. You're enjoying this, aren't you? He hissed. No, I said. I'm finishing it, he scoffed. You think they'll make you CEO? You think they want you? I don't want your chair, I said quietly. I want your silence, your resignation, in writing. Today. And if I don't, I pulled out the second red folder, the one with Clara's records, the one with hospital logs, forged initials, and text messages time-stamped during my mother's final days. He paled. You'd go public? He whispered. No, I said. I'll go to court, and if it goes public, that's your consequence, not mine. He stared at me, jaw trembling. People will think I'm a monster. You are. Greg didn't speak for a long time. He just stared at the folder like it might disappear if he blinked hard enough. Like denial might turn back time. But silence had always been his favorite weapon, until now. This time, it was mine. I sat across from him, poised and still, like my mother used to be when someone dared to cross a line. I could see it in his eyes now, the moment he realized he'd lost the narrative. I don't believe you, he muttered. You don't have to. I slid a second copy of the resignation across his desk. But the board will... He didn't reach for it. Instead, he leaned back, the leather chair creaking beneath him. I built this company. No, I said. My mother built it. You branded it. His face flushed. She gave me her trust. She gave me her proof. I opened the red folder slowly, like a priest unveiling the final page of a confession. Clara's printed emails. The hospice visitor log showing Greg's name, and no one else's, for 10 consecutive days. The notary time-stamped at 11:42 p.m. A text from Greg's personal number to Clara, reading, She won't know the difference, Clara. You're being dramatic. His breath hitched. That was the one. That was the nail. I was grieving, he said hoarsely. I didn't think she was going to pull through. I was trying to protect everything she built. No, I said, rising from my chair. You were trying to own it, he signed, not right away. But when I turned to leave, when I gave him that taste of being truly, irrevocably powerless. He called after me. "Wait," he said. Give me a few minutes." I turned, silent. His hands trembled as he picked up the pen. It was a signature made with a clenched jaw and a broken ego. A resignation dated, signed, and legally binding, to take effect at the next board meeting. I took it and nodded once. No smile. No triumph, just a closing chapter. But as I reached the door, he spoke again. "She hated me, didn't she?" I paused. "No," I said. "She trusted you, and you taught her that was a mistake." I walked out of that office into a golden wash of late afternoon light. The glass reflected the skyline, but in it, I didn't see Greg's empire anymore. I saw my mother's vision, a company built on purpose, a legacy nearly erased, and a daughter who refused to vanish. The next board meeting wasn't held in the usual, sleek, sterile room downtown. I changed the venue. We met at a smaller location, the original Whitman and Wolf development office. A space my mother once leased for Greg before he had investors, before he had the luxury of forgetting where he came from. Exposed brick, faded wood floors, glass that caught real sunlight. It smelled faintly of old paper and dust. But it was real, just like her, just like this moment. I stood at the head of the table. Greg's seat, the one he clung to for over a decade, was now empty. His nameplate gone, his power revoked. He didn't attend. He wouldn't dare. Lena, sharp as ever, glanced over the agenda I'd sent out earlier. "We received Mr. Whitman's resignation," she said. "Effective immediately. That makes you the largest voting stakeholder, Brielle." I nodded. "And I won't be taking over as CEO." Some of them looked surprised, others relieved. "I'm not here to rule," I continued. "I'm here to reclaim what this company was meant to be, what it was built on, my mother's principles, her design, her name." I opened a small velvet pouch and placed it on the table, the same one my mother used to keep in her top drawer. The one Greg never thought to look for. Inside was her ring, not the one she wore. The one she never sold, her mother's. The one she said she'd pass down to me the day I became something unstoppable. "This ring isn't about wealth," I said, holding it gently. "It's about promise. My mother's, mine, and now this company's." I looked across the table, not as a girl seeking justice, but as a woman building a future. "I propose we rename the company," I said. "Effective immediately." Murmurs, curious glances. "To honor the one who helped fund it, design it, rescue it." I took a breath. "I propose we rename it Langston Security Group, in honor of Eleanor Langston." Silence, but not the awkward kind. The reverent kind. The kind where people are remembering something they never should have forgotten. Lena nodded slowly. Motion seconded. A vote was taken. Unanimous. 12 hands went up. None went down. After the meeting, I stayed, behind in the old office. I walked the uneven floors, tracing the paint-stained corners where Mom used to keep her old sketches, back when she designed their first security modules by hand. I opened a dusty drawer. Inside was a photo I hadn't seen in years. Her. Me. Greg, back before it all soured, before trust was broken. She was laughing in it, holding my hand, and for a second, I didn't feel rage. I just felt absence and peace. Because today, I didn't just get even. I made things right. It arrived in a padded envelope with no return address. 3 weeks after the boardroom vote, I found it waiting in my mailbox, tucked between a catalog and a final notice for Greg's suspended credit line. The irony wasn't lost on me. The handwriting was unmistakable, curved, sharp, and careful. My mother's. I stared at it for a long time before I opened it. Part of me wondered if it had been lost in the mail. Part of me wondered if Clara had sent it. But deep down, I knew it didn't matter how it got to me, only that she meant it to. Inside was a single-page letter, written in blue ink on thick, cream stationery, the kind she only used for important things, the kind she kept in her desk drawer beside the will Greg destroyed. My dearest Brielle, if you're reading this, then I didn't get to say everything I wanted. And if I know you, and I do, then you're probably standing somewhere alone, holding your breath, feeling everything all at once. Please know this. I saw it coming. The way Greg changed, the way the air in our home got thinner when money was on the line. I tried to believe love could fix everything. But you already knew better than me. You always did. I'm sorry I didn't fight harder. I'm sorry I let him near what I built. I'm sorry I left you to finish the battle I should have ended myself. But I know you. I raised you. And if anyone could survive the fire and still walk forward with grace, it's you. Don't just take back what was stolen. Build something better. Let my name be your beginning, not your anchor. You are not what he did. You are what I dreamed of becoming. Love always. Mom, I cried. Not the kind of crying that comes from loss. I'd done that already. This was the kind that comes from release, like letting go of a weight you didn't even realize you'd carried for years. Weeks passed. Greg tried to push back on the resignation. He failed. He tried to spin the story in the press. It backfired. Eventually, he disappeared from the headlines and from the industry altogether. His legacy was reduced to a footnote, a scandal buried under audits and settlements. But mine was only beginning. Langston Security Group became one of the fastest-growing companies in its sector, not because of revenge, but because of vision. The one my mother had. The one she handed to me through loss, grief, and love that never died. I kept her name on the boardroom wall. I kept her photo in the founder's hallway. And I kept her letter tucked in my wallet, folded gently. Just once. People say revenge is about power. But this wasn't revenge. This was restoration. He tried to erase me from the legacy. Instead, I erased him. And in doing so, I didn't just reclaim what he stole. I became everything my mother always knew I could be.